I've seen so many people either wearing a Star Wars shirt or mentioned Star Wars spontaneously. And then just as I was about to pull out of this parking space, I realized that the car next to me was a Nissan Rogue, and it is the Rogue One Star Wars limited edition. So I guess you'd be forgiven for thinking this place was a gas station or two, but in actuality, it is a flea market in this same city in Mississippi that I've been talking about. And it's not open today. Hey look, there's some kind of Star Wars item, and it's even something from Rogue One. It says Hot Wheels on some of those. Danger, messy room ahead. Little do they know. And then lots and lots of toy cars in here. I wonder what other Star Wars toys might be lurking in there. I don't want that sign. May have to come back when they're open. Not all of my Toyaholic memories are about being a child. I was an adult when I was shopping here, at least out of college, so 92 or after. And there was a lady that had a stall here. Her name was Katina Vastlik, V-A-S-T-L-I-K. I don't know what nationality that is. And occasionally she would have a pretty good selection of vintage Star Wars items. So story number one about Katina Vastlik. I had learned of the variant of Lando Calrissian, one that had the painted teeth. I didn't have that one. I just had the one with his face was molded in brown and his eyebrows and eyes and mustache were painted on, but his whites of his eyes and his teeth were not. So I was visiting this city, went to Katina's stall one day, and she had one. Now, he was not on an Empire card, he was on a Return of the Jedi card. So that really didn't appeal to me. He was still, you know, carded. His blister had turned really yellowy orangey. And unfortunately, he also had a bad case of plastic rot on his legs. So there was this whitish material. I think she wanted $30 for him. Maybe 20, somewhere, some round number like that. And I said, I kind of want this figure, but I'm not going to keep him on the card. If that plastic rot would come off of him, I'll buy him. Can I open the blister and check? And she was like, yeah. So we had a knife. Somehow we produced a knife, and I very carefully slit the blister and could get in there to touch him. I think we had a Q-tip, or maybe I just hinged it open and touched him with my fingertip. But the plastic rot came off. So I decided to go ahead and get him. But what I remember is the partner, or maybe the lady that had the stall across, was standing there, and she turns to Katina and she goes, you're letting him open that? And she goes, he's allowed. So here we go. Here are both of my Lando Calrissians. This was the first one I owned, and this was the one that I bought here at this flea market many, many years ago. And as you can see, the blister was all yellow. You can tell it's not one of my childhood cards because all of those have the bubble ripped off. This is one of the only ones I have with a carefully sliced off. And like I say, even though I wasn't a kid, this memory is at least 30 years old or close to it. And thankfully, his plastic rot has not returned in all of that time. I'm pretty sure somewhere in my collection, I still have the rest of the blister. I've seen it for years after buying this guy. I just don't know where it currently might be. Could have been thrown away, so I wasn't going to hold the video searching for it. But here are my two Landos. The one on the right was purchased in the early 1980s. The one on the left purchased in the early 1990s. Another story that takes place in Katina's stall didn't have quite such a happy ending for me because I didn't know enough yet. You see, I already owned the Luke Jedi figure from Return of the Jedi. And one day I was in Katina's stall, and she had gotten in a new box of figures, and a kid ahead of me was going through it. And he was very excited to find a Luke who had a snap right here. Well, mine didn't have that. So he was so excited. Oh, it still has the clasp. I kind of looked over at Katina, all kind of smug, you know, and I was like... So that kid bought it, and I didn't. And it was a few years before I found out there actually is a legitimate variation of Luke Jedi with a snap sewn in. And nowadays I have both, and I have blue sabers and green sabers for them. So I try to keep the green saber with the one that has no snap, and the blue saber with the one that has a snap, just so they're distinct from each other. But yeah, I could have had this guy much earlier if I'd only known enough about my collecting field at the time, or if I'd gotten there a little bit earlier that day and just bought him as a curiosity before the other kids snapped him up. So, not purchased here, but knowledge was gained here. Now, this next story is not really about toys, but I'm going to go ahead and include it because of geographical proximity. This place over here is called the Safari Club now, but I'm pretty sure that used to be a movie theater back in the 80s. And if it was indeed a movie theater, then that's the place that I first saw Tron on the big screen. I was obsessed with Tron. Even before Tron came out, I was obsessed with it. And I remember at my grandparents' house, taking like a big cardboard box and painting all this circuitry, you know, little tiny artwork on the inside with like markers and whatever, and so that I could sit inside the box and be the man inside the computer, and like had passwords for me and my cousins and like all kinds of stuff. So yeah, Tron really captivated my ideas at the time. A couple of years later, I was dating my first girlfriend, and my uncle was visiting from Texas with his sons Michael and Todd. And I'm sure that his daughter, Holly, had come along. She won't factor into this story. She would have been too young to go. But he decides he's going to take us all to see a movie. And he takes us to see, pretty sure it was Beverly Hills Cop #2. And there's nudity in this film. And there's a lot of swearing in this film. And my uncle was just mortified because of my girlfriend's young age. He's like, oh my God, I can't believe I took you to see this movie. Your mother's going to kill me. And my girlfriend was like, we have cable. And he was like, oh, okay then. So that's a very 80s conversation. All right, well, I think that's all the stories for this trip. Thank you for watching.